Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. The JFJ raises concern about a national approach to local government election. Prime Minister says policy changes coming to the management of local government. And later in sports, Humber Lion docked points in Jamaica Premier League. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. We begin with a developing story. Investigators are now on the scene of a deadly motor vehicle crash in Spring Hill, Trelawny. It's understood that 2 men are dead and three others from the vehicles have sustained major injuries. It is not clear what led to the crash, but TVJ News has been informed that it was a two-vehicle collision involving a Toyota Axia motor car and a grey Voxy which operates as a taxi. Both drivers died and the 3 passengers who were travelling in the taxi were transported to hospital. This is the 6th road fatality along the Falmouth bypass in a matter of days. And we will have more on this story in Primetime News at 7. There is growing concern this afternoon that party leaders and MPs are overshadowing the local government councillor candidates for the upcoming election. It's an issue as analysts and groups believe this approach that is being used by both major parties undermines the responsibilities of councillors and municipal corporations across the country.
A flawed approach. That's how human rights group Jamaicans for Justice JFJ has labeled the national approach being taken with campaigning by both political parties ahead of the local government elections. It comes as political analyst Paul Ashley in the Tuesday Gleaner pointed out that the advertisements are not encouraging electors to vote for their respective councillor candidates, but rather along party lines. He says it's now a referendum on 2 individuals, Mark Golding and Andrew Holness. It's a point that Executive Director of JFJ, Michael Jackson, says is taking away from the importance of local governance.
That is why I personally don't believe in this argument that it's a referendum of what political parties are doing and so on. Absolute referendum is an election, but it cannot be seen as a referendum in a general election sense because it takes away from the importance of local government. It takes away from the importance of the issues that we mentioned, the needs of the poor in the community, primary health care, health and sanitation levels within your market, the matter of vending, environmental impact assessment. When you focus on the general election approach to get a sense of whether or not you can win your seats in parliament, it's a disservice to the Jamaican people.
She is therefore calling for a revamped approach to how politics is done in the country, especially in light of how the parties go about getting the electorate out for both the local government and general elections.
You can't come around just on election time to tell me and make the promises to me as a citizen. You have to tell me what your platform is. You have to tell me what your policy agenda is, how you're going to be doing policy formulation at some point. The public education, I think, from your political parties across all of them have been lacking, and I think I would say to them to shape up so that we can have an informed citizenry, so that we can have increased political participation from our citizens, so that at the end of the day, what we can also have is improved governance in this country, both at central government, but also at local government.
Ms. Jackson was speaking on the morning agenda on Power 106. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says policy changes are coming for the management of local government. Mr. Holness says he has been paying attention to how Jamaicans perceive local government and the visibility of councillors based on the results of recent polls, including the RGR Gleaner commissioned Don Anderson polls. Members of the public have painted a dismal picture of the stewardship of municipal corporations on the issues of parochial roads, drain upkeep, street light maintenance, markets, water quality, and cemeteries. And while 62% of Jamaicans say they are aware of the name of the councillor that represents their divisions, 53% of those polled say they are unhappy with the frequency with which councillors make their presence felt. Speaking to supporters in Portland on Monday, Mr. Holness indicated that campaigning for the February 26 local government election has also given him the opportunity to better understand the problems in local governance.
We cannot keep local government in the way that it has been for the last 50 years. Councillors have an important role to play in the development of their community. Councillors must be present in their divisions. Councillors must know their people. Councillors must pay attention to the issues of their community. And it is not all the time that we have active councillors. And we cannot ignore the fact of what has been said in the polls regarding how people feel about their local government.
He says coming out of next week's election, local governance will be transformed to make it more effective.
The management of your municipal affairs is not only about money. It is also about planning, it is about vigilance, it is about follow-up, and it is about presence. If garbage isn't collected, it is not sufficient to say there is no garbage truck. Because many times there is a garbage truck. And the scheduling of the garbage truck is not properly done.
And despite plans of turning the old Morant Bay Courthouse into a museum, Prime Minister Andrew Holness is reminding residents that it cannot be done overnight. Speaking with journalists after a visit to the location recently, Mr. Holness says while the government is intent on the transformation, it has to be done in conjunction with the Jamaica National Heritage Trust. This as the building has been declared a heritage site.
Even though I have plans, I can't make plans without the authority that has the jurisdiction over it. So they are looking at the building and they will advise me as to the best way to treat with the building. My own view is that we should incorporate it as part of what we're doing in terms of the development of the museum. Truth is that this has far more historic value, which makes it better suited to be part of a museum complex.
In the meantime, he suggested that some residents in St. Thomas may have tunnel vision.
The people there still haven't seen the vision as yet. They're very much concerned about their poor roads and their water situation. How is that going to change? Promises won't change that. What will change that is bringing economic activity that generates revenues so people can earn an income, pay taxes, that generates more revenue, and then we can generally fix roads and water supply. So we're doing the things necessary, right? But usually, when people have been suffering for very long, there is a certain impatience that sets in, a certain frustration, fatigue, and that gives opportunity for persons who are opportunistic in how they conduct their politics to try and play upon the frustration and fatigue.
People's National Party chairman for East Central St. Catherine, Raymond Price, says the authorities did their best in maintaining law and order during the PNP motorcade in Portmore, St. Catherine on Sunday. The campaigning activities came to a sad end after a 15-year-old boy, Lamar Gray, fell from one of the buses as it traveled through Southborough in the municipality. There have been suggestions for a marshalling system to be revised in monitoring the campaign activities across the island during elections. In supporting the move, Mr. Price explained the structure of the motorcade on Sunday.
There's a point person for each community and a point person for each bus. In addition to that, there's a marshal. I don't know if person saw him yesterday, had on a blue shirt, and he wasn't the only one. Their job was to try and let everybody stay in one lane. The teams from 100 man were out, and at one point I even went on and sat on the door of my vehicle, and when persons were coming up to direct them to fall in line.
In the meantime, children's advocate Dan Gordon Harrison has been appealing for parents to strictly supervise children during political activities. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us, more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Political tension is growing in Portmore, St. Catherine as candidates argue about the removal of a campaign sign in the municipality. The JLP says protocol was followed in removing it, but the PNP disagrees. Kerry-Ann Simpson has the details.
Mayoral candidate for the People's National Party Leon Thomas is calling for a peaceful campaign in the municipality after a PNP campaign sign was removed from its posted location. It's understood that the sign in question was taken down to facilitate work along the roadside. Jamaica Labour Party candidate for the Gregory Park Division, Joy Brown, says she was given the go-ahead to remove one sign.
I and the engineer came here last week and we decided to bring to here. To bring to right here, right? So the workmen came today and couldn't do a them work. I spoke to the engineer. I spoke to Mr. Campbell from council, telling them about the obstruction of the sign, right? I called the mayor. I can't verify it in my phone twice. Yesterday and today, and he did not answer. This sign obstruct the work. This sign was too low right down here.
But Mr. Thomas insists that sign was not an obstruction.
The work that is being done there done by the Portmore City Municipal Corporation. And I'm saying that if there's a sign impeding anything at all, the engineer will indicate to me, right, that the sign is impeding the work. And there was no work going on there at the time, right, for she to remove the sign or damage the sign. The engineer will call me to tell me if there is any problem with any placement of signs within the municipality, not for the councillor to go there with her entourage to damage the sign.
In light of the growing tension, Mr. Thomas is appealing for a peaceful campaign in the municipality. He says this kind of issue brings in focus the need for the office of the political ombudsman. The matter has since been reported to the police. Kerry-Ann Simpson, TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute. Electricity provider Jamaica Public Service JPS made a $19.8 million profit in its fourth quarter ended December 2023. The company's unaudited results published on the Jamaica Stock Exchange show an increase compared with the $16.3 million earned after tax for the 4 months to December 2022. These earnings were linked to higher operating profit and lower net finance costs. The quarter's performance brought post-tax profit for 2023 to $67 million or 10 billion Jamaican dollars. JPS's revenues for the quarter were also up, valued at $285 million versus $283 million. Income for the financial year was, however, slightly lower, coming in at $1.07 billion against $1.16 billion for 2022. Further afield, Capital One has announced it is buying Discover Financial Services. The all-stock deal is worth $35.3 billion. The deal would combine two of the largest credit card companies in the United States. Capital One has a market value of more than $52 billion. Discover's market value is $28 billion. The merger would be one of the biggest mergers this year. Capital One uses MasterCard and Visa for most of its cards. And that's it for the Business Minute. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, a Haitian investigative judge says there is enough evidence to charge 49 people, including the wife of former President Jovenel Moïse, who was killed during the deadly assault at his residence on July 7, 2021. But while Martin Moïse is yet to make any public statement following the bombshell announcement, former Prime Minister Claude Joseph is accusing the current head of government, Dr. Ariel Henry, of weaponizing the Haitian justice system by targeting him and the former First Lady. On the international scene, the U.S. has proposed a draft resolution at the UN Security Council which calls for a temporary ceasefire in Gaza. It has also warned Israel against invading the overcrowded city of Rafah. The U.S. has previously avoided the word ceasefire during UN votes on the war, but President Joe Biden has made similar comments. However, the U.S. plans to veto another draft resolution from Algeria which calls for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. And a band of major downpours is pounding the U.S. state of California. Roughly 37 million Californians are under flood alerts, and the Weather Prediction Center issued excessive rain outlooks for most of California through Tuesday. The Prediction Center says Los Angeles is at level 3 of 4 flood risk, while both San Diego and Santa Barbara are at level 2. Forecasters say the rain in California is likely to end Wednesday afternoon or evening as the storm behind the soaking weather heads east towards the Rockies. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Ann Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jermaine Brown will have your midday sports report.